This is the rarest box of miniatures in my collection. It is not this one, and not this one, nor is it this one. It's actually this. In today's video, not only will I guide you through this rarity, but also two other really rare boxes I've been able to find. Maybe paint up a couple of these rare miniatures to give you an insight why this set is so unique and how I finally managed to complete my collection. Throughout the years, I've gone through thousands of miniatures and dozen upon dozen of armies and collectible miniatures. But there's one thing in my collection that every time that I see it on my shelves and I see the painted miniatures, instead of getting stressed, I get excited and I get all warm and fuzzy on the inside. And that is my original copy of Heroquest and all of the miniatures inside of it. And if you're new to Heroquest, here's a 30-second recap. The game was originally released in 1989 as a collaboration between Milton Bradley and Games Workshop. Directly upon arrival, it was a massive hit and have since gained a legendary status due to the amazing figure design, simple yet effective gameplay, and amazing art by artists such as Max Dunbar and Les Edwards. At the game's one-year mark in 1990, the game had already sold over 300,000 copies. And because of its popularity, the companies then released 6 different expansions as well as the Adventures Design Kit. So I started my Heroquest journey by picking up 2 incomplete versions of the original game to build it together to 1.5 complete ones. And quite soon after that, I managed to snag up the 2 first expansions. I even got them in Swedish, so it's Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch King. Or as they say in Swedish, Den onde herrens återkomst. Really sexy. These are the 2 first expansion sets released for Heroquest. I guess the rules are a bit of an expansion, but they don't really tickle your fancy. And these 2 are not really that difficult or expensive to get hold of, as they were released around the same time as the initial game and sold in quite massive amount of copies. The real challenge for me was to find the 4 other expansions: Wizards of Morcar, Against the Ogre Horde, Barbarian Quest Pack, and the Quest for the Elf. The first one I managed to get hold of was half the set of Wizards of Morcar. This box, from what I can tell, was only released in the UK. Wizards of Morcar was released in 1993 and has an amazing box art once again designed by Les Edwards and more rules from Stephen Baker. 16 extra miniatures to paint and play with, first and foremost the 4 Wizards of Morcar, but also 12 awesome looking men-at-arms. Game-wise, there's lots of new tokens, game tiles, and features like magic barriers. Just look at this fire tile and the earthquake tile. But there's also 64 new playing cards. A real legendary find if you ask me. And after a while, I managed to complete my collection, giving me a complete set of Wizards of Morcar. Unfortunately, I don't have the box, but to me, the cardboard box itself is not the end goal. It is especially the miniatures, but also the playing features for that one time in the future when I'm going to play through all of these games. So I'm gonna paint up one of the wizards because honestly, I am so freakishly excited about painting these. There is something special about using modern-day painting techniques on miniatures from the early 90s. There's a simplicity to them that now, when painting them in a volumetric highlight contrast style, just brings out the features in a way that you would never have imagined them as a kid. And I am incredibly excited how this one turned out. I then moved on to the last set released in Europe. I think that this one as well was only out in the UK, and that is Against the Ogre Horde. And just like Wizards of Morcar, this one came out in 1993 and marks the last release on European soil for Heroquest. Why they stopped making expansions for Heroquest has never really been told, but one can guess that dwindling sales after a game had been out for 5 years is one of the reasons, and making more expansions for a game that's not selling anymore anymore, well, it's kind of self-explanatory. Another reason could also be licensing. That seems to be a problem when companies work together across borders. But my last guess is pretty much exactly 2 years after these expansions were released, Games Workshop released their own version of the game, Warhammer Quest. It was pretty much just a newer, hotter version of Heroquest with slightly more modern design and a bunch of new rules. But that's neither here nor there. Similarly to the previous set, I don't have the box, but I have all of the tiles, the cards, and the miniatures. And even if I love the playing cards in this set, the miniatures are probably the ugliest ogres that Games Workshop ever released. Some of the coolest things included in this set, outside of the 15 amazing chaos spells, is of course the overground tiles, the 2 different double-sided room tiles, the Ogre Lord, the Ogre Chieftain, the Ogre Champion, as well as 4 Ogre Warriors, and a personal favorite, the Ogre Throne. What the fuck? So I thought today, why not try to make the first ever good-looking version of this miniature? And speaking of beautiful miniatures, while Lucas paints this one up, let me talk about this week's sponsor, Witchsong Miniatures. For a single $1 per month, you will get Witchsong Miniatures, awesome looking big bad boys for home 3D printing. This month you get the once dead king as part of their tribes, but not only that. Witchsong Miniatures is one of our longest running sponsors, and they've been awesome at supporting this channel. They love spoiling you guys. Squidmar viewers now get an additional miniatures, Cerberus Underworld Guardian, still for just $1. And on top of that, in the welcome pack, they have an additional 2 miniatures. The Faceless Queen and the Ascendant Great Wolf. And if there's any of their old minis you want to have, there's never been a better time. Right now, because the holidays are coming, they're offering Squidmar viewers 90% off their 100 plus minis backlog. Use the code Squidmar90 at their store and bada bing bada boom, you're good to go. However, I was still missing the final expansions, the 2 pie-in-the-sky expansions for Heroquest collectors. And the reason why these are so difficult to get hold of is, number 1, they were only released in the US, and they were released during a time when Heroquest was not nearly as popular anymore. A lot of people who got these games didn't take care of them, so either the miniatures are missing, broken. So over the past 4 years, once I started collecting these games again, the average price for a poorly conditioned Barbarian pack have been $700, and the Elf pack has been even worse. That one has been around $1,200. And the sad thing is, because we are in Europe and the EU, whenever we order something from the US, you add another 25% in import fees and tariffs. Luckily for me, over the past 12 months, the prices have slowly started to come down. About a year ago, a collector in the EU posted a Barbarian Quest for sale in the Facebook group for Heroquest. And I'm not exactly sure why there are 2 expansions that were released only in the UK and Europe, and 2 that were only released in the US. But one thing I found is that in the US, Avalon Hill as well as Hasbro stands next to Games Workshop as the releasing company for these products. So I am guessing that some of the expansions were licensed to Hasbro as opposed to Milton Bradley in Europe. The Barbarian Quest came out in 1992, and you can really feel that there are different people working on the American expansions as opposed to the European. This bad boy still cost me 400 euros, but since it was sold within EU, I had sold a chunk of my collection that I hadn't used for a bit, so I thought it was finally time to give myself a treat. The box includes 10 new adventures, a bunch of new tiles, and more importantly, the Frozen Horror, Swordsman, Halberdier, the Scout, the Crossbowman, Yeti, Polar Warbear, and my favorite, the Ice Gremlin. Let's paint that bad boy up and then go to the final piece in this collection. When I picked up the Barbarian set, the elf pack was still way out of my league. It still cost over $1,000 and I just couldn't justify ordering one and then having to pay the import fees on top of that. But then one day about 6 months ago, showed up on eBay for $450 and I felt that it was finally time to buy the last piece in my collection. This was the 4th and last expansion for Heroquest released in North America. And it came out in 1993, so about the same time as Ogre, Horde and Wizards of Morcar. The game design was done by Catherine L. Connors, and the box art had yet another designer, this time Donald Cooker. It is pretty much the only thing I purchased in the last year, and I am so happy I finally managed to get one. This set is packed with more ogres, it's got more elven warriors, a couple of wolves, and most importantly the coveted female elf. So now I finally have completed my collection. Let's paint up the female elf and after that show you all of the miniatures in my collection together, because it's quite an epic sight. And if you guys want to check out the brushes that we use in this video while we're painting, or our awesome Squidmar merchandise, we got all of that on our website, squidmar.com. So, is this the last box I'll ever buy? Probably not the last box of miniatures, but maybe it's the last Oldhammer box that I'll ever buy. Because I don't feel like there's any Oldhammer out there right now that I am really excited about having. At least not to the extent that I felt about Heroquest, where I really want to collect them and have them forever. Other times it's more about me wanting to paint a mini, and then when I painted it, I can sell it off. So hopefully I can stay strong, and this is the last miniature box in my collection. Although, I don't have Warhammer Quest yet.